Voters in our region are looking to cast their vote in the upcoming general election. Northwest Public Broadcasting and the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin counties want you to know the candidates. Recorded at the Washington State University Tri-Cities campus, this is Vote 2022.
Good evening and welcome to this virtual candidate forum. My name is Ravine Jimenez. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin counties. The League is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates. In presenting these forums, it is our goal to provide opportunities for voters to become better informed about the people who are running for public office. The 2022 general election candidate forums have been pre-recorded in person by Northwest Public Broadcasting at the WSU Tri-City studio rather than on Zoom. They will also now be available at nwpb.org/vote2022 through our additional partners, the Columbia Basin Badger Club, the cities of Richland and Pasco, and of course the League's website and Facebook page. Please go to lwv/bf.org to see the complete information for accessing any and all of these sites through November 8th, 2022. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Matt Lovelace from Murrow College of Communication, WSU Pullman. Please welcome Matt.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the League of Women Voters there. We're back here for a fourth night at the WSU Tri-Cities campus, wrapping up our Vote 2022 series, looking at local and statewide races that will be on the ballot here in the Tri-Cities. Tonight, we'll feature a couple of the debates we have left on the schedule, looking at the contested races for Benton County Prosecuting Attorney and a race for a Benton County Commission seat. Now, what we want to give voters out there is a little more insight into these candidates and, of course, where they stand on some major issues affecting the region and state. So how today's program will work: we do have an hour and a couple of races. That means we'll get about a half hour with each one. With that, here's how timing will work. All candidates will have 90-second opening statements. We will then follow with a pretty quick back and forth. We have 6 questions planned, a 90-second response time for each of those. As moderator within the parameters of this program, I do reserve the right to include more questions, or time permitting, we may allow for some closing statements tonight. For now, those are not necessarily part of the schedule, but we will see. And of course, we'll all do our best to stay on time and on topic for the sake of fairness and transparency. So we begin our program in a race for the Benton County Commissioner Position 2 seat. That seat occupied by the outgoing Commission Chair Sean Small, which means a couple of new faces potentially for that seat, but not to local politics, certainly. Joining me now are Michael Alvarez and Bill Jenkins. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me here today. We appreciate your time here on the WSU Tri-Cities campus. Now, as I just stated in our rules overview, we'll begin with an opening statement from each of you. Mr. Alvarez, you're first alphabetically by last name, so we'll go with you. Your 90 seconds start now.
All right, thank you. Once again, my name is Michael Alvarez, and I'm the current mayor of Richland. I currently manage and review a $322 million plus city budget. I have a proven track record of keeping taxes low and saying what I'm going to do and getting it done on behalf of the citizens that I serve. My goal as a county commissioner is to collaborate with the cities within the county and for more good paying jobs, replacing aging infrastructure, to continue to improve our public safety and reduce response times. I will continue to work hard on issues that would improve the quality of life for our senior citizens, family, youth, and my fellow veterans. I'm endorsed by several county elected officials, including the outgoing County Commissioner Sean Small, state senators, legislators, several mayors and mayor pro temps of the majority of the cities within the county, professional organizations, dozens and dozens of local businesses, unions, and I'm proudly endorsed by Richland and Kennewick firefighters, as well as heavily supported by local law enforcement. I was very humbled to receive nearly twice the number of votes as my opponent in the recent primary election by voters of Benton County District 2. I'm asking for your vote, and if I have your vote, I'm asking you to ask your friends, family, and coworkers to vote for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Now let's get to Mr. Jenkins' opening statement. 90 seconds are available to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for joining us here tonight. I'm Bill Jenkins. I'm a former state representative of the 16th District. My priorities are God, family, and community, in that order. I attended and graduated from the University of Redlands with a business and management degree. I've got 35 years of financial business. And I own a winery. I'm a community guy, I always have been. I was Chamber of Commerce president in Prosser. I was on the Prosser School Board, the president, Rotary District Governor, like I say, state legislator. I was in leadership on our caucus and also ranking member on the Community Development Committee. I want to help people. That's why I got into the legislature and served my 2 terms, and now I want to come to the county and I want to do the same. It feels good to give back and to have people appreciate some of the things that you can do for them, and that's the feel good, and hopefully be able to continue that. I use common sense. It seems to be a forgotten and lost thing, but that's what I thrive on. I have the relationships built in the legislature, the 4 counties, and all the cities. So I hope to use those going forward, and I do have a commitment to finish the job, and that's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Now we'll do a Q&A here. Welcome to Talk to Me. If you'd like to address your voters, you can as well. Let's get to the first of these questions brought to us by the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin counties. And Mr. Alvarez, starting with you with the first question here, and we'll alternate as we go, but are you supportive of renewing the 0.3% public safety tax that will expire in 2024? And if so, in your opinion, how should spending of that be prioritized? And if not, why not?
You know, I am very supportive of the public safety sales tax. I think it's very important. It's going to be coming up. We can lose, I think it's about 100 Richland police officers, Kennewick police officers, deputies, prosecutors. There's so many different programs. There's Drug Metro Task Force. There's so many programs that all together, Boys and Girls Club, My Friend's Place, which is a homeless teen shelter. There's a lot of different programs within that. And we can even improve it. Yesterday in Richland, we just put the first AED or defibrillator down at Howard Amen Park. That could be part of that public safety sales tax too, where we're putting those in there. Those are life-saving things we can put all around Benton County. So I think that's a goal we could put in there. I know that the coroner's in there. We've been looking at having a medical examiner. We're having to, when we do autopsies, they're having to go to Seattle or trying to get a doctor there to do it, potentially Spokane. We can go ahead and go with neighboring counties and maybe put in, on as part of that tax, to go ahead and help pay for a medical examiner right here in Benton County. So I'm very pro that. I think it's vital that we don't lose our officers and our prosecutors, where right now it's very hard to go ahead and recruit and retain. So there's a lot of different things. I think if we put everybody together and collaborate with the cities within the county, we can do some really good things with that. And so, yeah, I'm 110% for that. Thank you. All
right, thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Jenkins, same question to you. That 0.3% public safety tax set to expire in a couple of years here. Are you supportive of keeping it going?
Yes, I am. I think it's extremely important. There's things that we can be considered as far as what's needed with that tax that perhaps isn't being done right now. And one of those is the sheriff's office. There's a real problem with the sheriff being able to keep his officers that he was able to train to be very good officers and keep the public safe, because public safety is so important right now with what's going on. Every time you look at the news, there's a murder or something happening. So we have to turn that around. The sheriff needs appropriate funding, and the commissioners need to enable him to receive that funding. Right now, that doesn't always happen. And it's tough for him to retain the officers because they'll go to other cities that pay better, and sometimes you can't blame them for doing that. But if we can make it to where it's worthwhile for them to stay on the job as sheriffs, boy, that's going to help our county out immensely, especially the unincorporated areas that don't have city policing. So yes, I'm very much in approval of that public safety tax.
All right, Mr. Jenkins, thank you very much. Let's move on to question number 2. And Mr. Jenkins, we'll start right back with you on this one. According to the Tri-City Herald, the Health District Board is being expanded beyond just the 6 Benton and Franklin County commissioners. So my question for you is, do you agree with that move? And if so, what other municipalities or others do you believe should be represented and why?
Well, right now I've been keeping up with that, and last time I was asked that same question, I did approve, because it does help having reference during those committee meetings from professionals and having them have a vote. I really think it's going to help us maybe overcome what happened during this last go around with COVID. That got to be, in some cases, pretty controversial, to say the least. And if we have more representation from more professionals on that board, I think that's going to help us, and it'll make the citizens of Benton County a little more confident of what that board is doing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Alvarez, same question to you. Do you agree with the expansion of the board?
Absolutely, I do agree with the expansion of the board. Whether right now they're looking still, I believe, at whether it's going to be 4 county commissioners, 2 from Franklin, 2 from county, or whether it's a full 6. And it's going to be equal across the board. So there's 6 county commissioners. There's going to be 6 additional members on that. I believe one will at least be a medical professional. I believe one will come from the tribes as well. So that's 2 out of that. We would need 4 more. And so yes, let's get people in that are very educated, that are specialized in that field. And I've always been one where, you know what, I don't know everything. I'm for sure, I'm a finance guy, business guy, but we bring people in that are experienced in those fields. You know what, they can go ahead and give us more information. I can do homework. I can go ahead and talk to the public. In between all of that, I think we can make better educated decisions forward for our health here in Benton County. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Alvarez, thank you very much. All right, let's move on to question number 3. We're going quickly here, so we'll get into plenty of topics, hopefully. That'll get us now talking about fire danger. You know, the hottest part of the year we think is behind us, but perhaps some lessons learned after another damaging fire season. And of course, understanding Mother Nature is still in charge. What measures can Benton County commissioners put in place to mitigate climate issues as they relate to wildfires? Mr. Alvarez, this one starts with you.
That's an interesting question, kind of a tough topic. You know, like I said, I've been endorsed by the Richland and Kennewick firefighters, so I get a lot of information from them. And matter of fact, I went to fire ops over here at the Hammer site a few months ago, and did a day in the life of a firefighter. We did all kinds of stuff and training and stuff, and I told them the title that I'd want after that was done was retired. Too old for that. But no, I think the good thing to go ahead and do is talk to the fire chiefs in the county and the cities within the county and get their information. Once again, that's not a topic that I'm attuned to, so you know what? Get the professionals in there and let them teach us what we need to do and rely on them so that we can go ahead and get good information and put things forward in a proactive way so that, you know, things don't happen like that as much as we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Jenkins, same question to you, just about what is the county commission's role in mitigating wildfire danger around here?
Well, as my home was threatened by a fire just recently, and then of course what was 2,000 or 3,000 acres over there by Gibbons Road recently that burnt. We've got very flammable, combustible plants and that type of thing around our region, and fire is a danger. We've got to mitigate that, and I'm somewhat opposed to creating ordinances and laws and that type of thing, because we have enough of that going on with us. I think education to the homeowners and to the people is the way of getting that done. So if we can have some educational programs, some intensive educational programs that are attended, because a lot of these things, they announce them and maybe 10, 15 people will show up. So we have to get the word out. We have to be diligent about getting this done and getting it done in the proper way. I just hope to God that the fire season is a short one, and no one's going to be harmed by this going forward.
All right, Mr. Jenkins, thank you very much. Our next question, and this one gets a little broad, maybe it would be a launching point for some other topics, but I just want to ask what you think is the biggest challenge facing Benton County and the Benton County Commission in particular.
Well, right now, I think public safety is huge. We talked a little bit about the public safety tax, but there's also the jail. What's going to happen with the jail? what's going to happen with the old Kennewick Hospital, with the rehabilitation center. I think that rehabilitation center is something that has to be considered. It has to be addressed, and we need to move forward on that, because that's going to lessen the load on our jails. Also, another thing that I've been very involved with, matter of fact, yesterday, went on a 3-hour tour up around the 244 proposed windmills up on Horseheaven, and went with members of that passionate group some people, you know, they don't want it at all, and I would prefer not to have it at all, but I think it's going to lead to addressing some form of mitigation on the numbers. They're going to send drones up 500 feet to see the visibility of where the people can see the top of these windmills and be affected in that way. If we can mitigate that visual impact, I think that would be a good thing moving forward. So there's several things that need to be done, and those are just a few of them.
Could you repeat that question one more time, please?
Yeah, the question just had to do with mitigating just the broad issues affecting the Benton County Commission.
So, you know, I think thank you very much. So I think there's several issues on that. So you have public safety, you have aging infrastructure, you have mental health, and right now the big topic is the wind turbines up there on Horseheaven Hill. So when it comes to public safety, I've spoken to the sheriff plenty of times, and he's already said, hey, here's a list of things we're trying to go ahead and accomplish that they need for equipment. So I've always been pro, if you supply our first responders the equipment they need, not only does it protect the public, but also protects them so they can go home to their families. So that's one of the items there, and public safety sales tax is coming, and it's going to affect everybody if it's not renewed. As far as the mental health side of it, where they're doing an inpatient short-term facility where they're going to have youth, and they're under the age of 18 to go ahead and get treatment for mental health and substance abuse, transitional housing. They got the $9 million some odd dollars to go ahead and build a long-term inpatient facility, along with $5 million, I believe, to go ahead and keep that program going, along with an additional 1/10 of 1% they just include in our sales tax. So that's something that's going to go, and that's a challenging, and that's going to be a really great thing to go ahead and move forward. As far as aging infrastructure, I know we don't talk about that, but that's something that we need to go ahead and county commissioners need to collaborate with the cities within the county. Let's get some of the aging infrastructure in play, back in there for roads, water, sewer, those type of things, and internet connectivity. And last but not least, the wind farms. Yeah, I saw the Columbia Basin Badger Club had people on there for and against, and it was a really enlightening thing. And at the end of the day, I listened to the pros and cons, and the cons outweighed the pros. And unfortunately, that's just not a good fit for our community at this time, I believe.
You know what? And I'll actually give us an opportunity to elaborate a bit on that bit, because if you had the opportunity to make remarks to that hearing about the windmills that might be coming to Kennewick, what would you say? We'll go right back to you, Mr. Alvarez.
So a couple things. Going back to that survey, the Regional Tri-City Chamber of Commerce did a survey on that, and it says negative to very negative impact. From birds and wildlife to flashing lights to decommissioning to tourism to flickering, about 70 to 80% were, so that would be a negative to a very negative impact. Positive to very positive impact, only about 30% overall was for jobs, clean energy, and property tax revenue. And the last question was, in your opinion, is the Horseheaven Hills Wind Project worth the personal, environmental, economic impact? And 79% said no. The best thing we can go ahead and do on that is with FSEC, the government entity that's actually at the state right now looking at the environmental impact studies, deciding whether to recommend the project or not for the governor to sign. One of the things we really got to fight forward on that is to ask them to change their policy and put more policy into our elected officials, community leaders, and the public have much more input and say when they're deciding whether to go ahead and give it a thumbs up or down. So I think we all have to get together as a community, elected officials, everybody. If we can go ahead and do that, we can change a lot of things, but it's going to be a challenging time for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Jacob, I'll repose the question here in the same way. If you had the opportunity to make remarks, to talk at those hearings regarding those windmills, what would you say?
Well, you know, I have had that opportunity, and this was about a year ago at the county commissioner meeting that they had at the Justice Center. And what I said at that time and I still agree, is that we've been bypassed on everything by the FSEC committee, and that's the environmental committee on the west side that was formed by the governor, and we're not having a voice. Our county. When again, we're not having a voice either on the new solar project. I attended that meeting in Pasco and talked to FSEC and said, how come we're not having this opportunity to discuss this? How come they went directly to you? And they said, oh, there's the moratorium that the county put into place that doesn't allow the developer to go directly to the county, so their only option was to come to us. And we know what's going to happen when it goes to FSEC. They're going to approve it because politically it lies with their beliefs. So we need to have a voice. And dang it, I can't get over how come we don't have that voice. And I'm going to stress that in the future, that these developers come to us first so that we can have our say. Like my opponent said, 80% are opposed to it, but yet at the very first meeting they said, oh yeah, they're all for it. So anyway, it really irks me.
Well, let's move on topics now. And talking about, I think you might have hinted at some of this, Mr. Alvarez, the work behind the Benton Franklin Recovery Center and some of the work the coalition is putting on for putting that together. Would you support the Recovery Center, Mr. Jenkins, and what role do you think you would play in that development?
Well, I certainly would support this. I was disappointed when at first that it wasn't, it was stalled because of the 3-day release. Now, and I had an opportunity to speak to the sheriff about this, and it's something that's needed. We need to keep our jails down so that they're not so impacted with that type of prisoner. If we were to get the jails down, we might be able to make that a profit center by being able to house jail members from other counties. So we need that center. The facility has been purchased. The money is there. Right now, it's just politics to get it done. And if I was in there and being one of the political decision makers, it would certainly get done. And the facility is fantastic for what needs to be done. And they have adjoining facilities all around that complex that can house aftercare or whatever is needed in conjunction with the people that are in the facility. Let's just do it. It's something that's been talked about. It's something that's sorely needed. Spokane did it, and it's working perfect. So why not us?
And Mr. Alvarez, same question to you. Do you support it? If not, why not? But if so, what role do you think you would play in making that a reality?
Right, excuse me, right now I do support it, and I support both facilities. The one that there's actually under contract with the purchase sales agreement for the 1 to 3 day inpatient facility, along with having their youth in there for treatment and also transitional housing, as well as the $9 million where they're going to build. They're looking at potentially building a new long-term adult facility. And so I've also talked to the sheriff. We go way back, and so yes, I agree with that. But also when it comes, and I've talked to a lot of the mental health coalition members and people within the public, and really have sat down with them, and they wanted to talk to me quite a bit. I've been to a lot of their different meetings and spoke to them. But one of the things on there, I also want to go ahead and say, mental health isn't necessarily somebody that's in jail. It could be somebody that has had a sickness and has just had stress. It could be someone coming from the military that has had stress. It could have been somebody that maybe a family situation where they need to get some help as well and some counseling. So it's a wide range. I had a commissioner from one of our boards here in the city came to me and says, "Hey, Mayor Alvarez, I know that this is something you're passionate about. I don't normally tell everybody about this, but my daughter had committed suicide. So to me, it's something that we need to have done for all spectrums. It doesn't matter young or old. I'm supportive of it, and I definitely want to get that done. And my role would be to make sure that we implement that program and we get those buildings and facilities built." Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Now, here's what I'll say. We have some more time, and so I would like to set a timer, not to change the rules on you, gentlemen, but we'll go a 1-minute timer on these next couple of questions, just so we can get to some more topics here. And we'll go back to you at the top, Mr. Alvarez. And really, judging from the public comments that the BFT board has received, what do you think the Benton Franklin Transit could do better, Mr. Alvarez?
Well, I know that the board that's made up of city council members from Prosser, West Richland, Kennewick, et cetera, along with county commissioners, first of all, there was some funding that was, additional funding that was going to be done from the state to Benton Franklin Transit. I know my opponent said earlier that he may not have taken those funds, but without those funds, they would be running lean in the next few years. And so to me, I agree with the board in the way they're doing, but I also know, here's the key part, not only did they have the funding to continue that, the transit system, which is excellent here in the Tri-Cities, is they hired a new general manager, and they're looking at ways how to make Benton Franklin more efficient. And so those are the professionals there. You have your board members, where they're going to go ahead and get different information from the GM and staff. But once again, they hired a new GM, and the GM's job is to go ahead and find better ways to make it more efficient. So I'm all for that, and I'm happy with the changes and what they're doing there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Alvarez. And I set up with a little bit of that context, Mr. Jenkins. The comments haven't been all great. And so what do you think that the transit can do better?
Well, you know, the transit, we all see the transit buses and there's nobody on them. But it is mass transit, and it is something that perhaps is needed in the future, you know, depending on gas and that type of thing, and what they're trying to do environmentally. I just wish that we'd be able to promote the ridership and get more people on those buses if we're spending this kind of money, because right now when they're looking for tax dollars, they go by ridership, and ridership includes somebody that gets on and might transfer twice. That's 3 different riderships. So we need to be more transparent on really what's going on with that. Yeah, and I'd hate to lose the money from the state and that type of thing. But it's almost like a carrot being hung over us, so that we'll do what they want us to do. So I'm not on that board, and so I would hate to say I would do this or I would do that, because I wanted to be more educated on it. So thank you.
Do you mind if I make one quick comment on that, on those fundings? And Bill can go ahead and do the same thing if we want.
Well, if we would like to do that, I want to be able to give Bill a chance to respond to what you say.
So the key thing with the state funding and why the board took it, if they didn't take the funding, which helped to Benton Franklin Transit, the funding wasn't going to go away. It was just going to a neighboring county. So that's one of the reasons why they took it. You either take it or it's just going to be used at a neighboring county. So I just wanted to make sure that the public understood that. And
Mr. Jenkins, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, that's known as far as the carrot. It still is a carrot that is making us make the decision whether we take it. The money goes away to Benton County, but if that entails making a different decision that's better for the county, then perhaps that money wouldn't be as needed as some people believe.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Now, for the sake of fairness, let's get to an 8th question here. I think we've probably run out of time for closing statements, but this one's a little bit open-ended as well. And both of you gentlemen, we've had conversations in this very room in the primary forums. And I'm curious to pick your brain when you leave here and go, I can't believe they didn't ask us about that. And so, Mr. Jenkins, we'll start with you here. What's a question you haven't been getting that you think you should be getting?
Well, one question would be, who are you endorsed by? And I'm proud to say that just recently, after the primary, Barry Bush came out and endorsed me because of what I'm doing and what he knows and his group knows that I will do for the windmill group, the Save Our Ridges group, which has worked diligently. Also been endorsed recently by the former mayor of Kennewick, and that his endorsement. He's also the past district governor of Rotary, Bob Quay, and then the Benton County Republican Party. So in addition to all my legislative endorsements from people from the counties, from different counties and different cities, I really feel that, and you can look at my website and you can check the endorsements. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Alvarez, same question to you. It's kind of asking yourself a question. What is it that you're not hearing at these forums and debate?
So I'm going to have to do the same thing, just make it a wash. And we're friends. So recently been endorsed by the Kennewick firefighters, obviously Richland firefighters, endorsed by the majority of mayors within the cities in the county, and just recently was endorsed by Brent Gary, the West Richland mayor. But one of the things I don't get to talk about because we're so short on time is my family, we moved here. I was in the United States Marine Corps. My dad was in the military. We moved all around. Finally, when my wife and myself came here right out of college, we've made this our home. We've lived here for over 30 years plus. We've raised two children here, both graduate from WSU. My daughter, matter of fact, is at University of Tennessee going to her first year of law school. And I've been married 33 years, so this is our home. We love it here. We love all the water shorefront here, and we just want to make it a better place for our grandkids and for everybody that lives in Benton County. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Michael Alvarez, Bill Jenkins, we really appreciate your time here on the WSU Tri-Cities campus. Best of luck on a couple of clean campaigns here the last few weeks here. That does it for our time in this Benton County Commission race. Our next debate stays here in Benton County, this time to the contested race for Benton County Prosecuting Attorney. That's a position that's been occupied by Andy Miller. Announced his retirement after 36 years in the position for the first time since the 1980s. We'll have a new face here, and one of those two is joining me, trial lawyer Eric Eisinger and Deputy Prosecutor Ryan Luxon. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Now, let's get right into our opening statements, and we'll get to some questions provided by the League of Women Voters in a moment. We start alphabetically by last name here. So, Mr. Eisinger, 90 seconds for your opening statement, sir.
Thanks a lot, Matt. My name is Eric Eisinger, and I'm running for Benton County Prosecutor. With the legalization of drugs and crime on the rise in our community is facing nothing short of a public safety crisis. And now more than ever, we need a county prosecutor who has a proven track record of leadership and experience, and who is fully committed to fighting crime and maintaining safety in our community. I have been married for 21 years. I have 5 children. I'm a former Kennewick prosecutor, a former Bar Association president, a respected Tri-Cities attorney, and for my family and for your family, I intend to fight this tide of rising crime. I will work closely with law enforcement. I will request appropriate bail and request appropriate punishment, and I will provide appropriate avenues for rehabilitation for those who genuinely need help. I am the most qualified candidate for this position. I bring a small business mindset to an office that desperately needs change and greater efficiency. I'm endorsed by the Benton County Republican Party and leading conservatives. I love this community, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Mr. Eisinger, thank you very much. Mr. Luxon, you have 90 seconds for your opening statement.
Thank you, Matt. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us today. These are always wonderful events. And just tell you a little bit of why I'm running for prosecutor. I was born and raised in the Tri-Cities. Like a lot of people, never thought I would come back. But 12 years ago, I made a decision to raise my family in this wonderful community. And I've been serving as a Benton County Deputy Prosecutor for the past 11 plus years. And I've seen firsthand what it takes to be the elected prosecutor. And 5 years ago, I made the decision to give back to my community more and ran for the Richland City Council. And I'm currently on the Richland City Council, and I've had the privilege of serving as the mayor of Richland for 2 years as well. I have the leadership experience, I believe, to be the next prosecutor. I have the relationships built with law enforcement, with the current prosecutors in the office. This is a very, very difficult time for our community. We are experiencing the pains of growing into a larger community. We're experiencing the pains of coming out of a COVID pandemic. And also from a public safety perspective, our law enforcement officers are struggling, our prosecutor's office is struggling, and it's more important than ever that we elect someone with proven leadership experience and relationships with the office. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Benton County Sheriff Jim Raymond, the Benton County Sheriff Tom Croskery, the Franklin County Sheriff Jim Raymond, as well as current elected prosecutor Andy Miller, and I have the support of all the deputy prosecutors in our office. So just again, thank you for having us, and I'm excited to answer some questions.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Let's get to our round of questions here then. And we'll start with Mr. Eisinger. We'll have an even number of questions, and so we'll alternate as we go from there. And certainly, one of the things we're hearing from police a lot lately are about changes in state law that they say have made some challenges to policing. Let's turn that into a question about prosecuting, if we will. We'd like you to give an example of a change in a law that has made it more difficult for prosecuting attorneys, and why, and what would you suggest as an alternate to that law? Mr. Eisinger.
I think the most significant change in the law it came about with the Blake decision. So early in 2021, the Washington State Supreme Court ruled that our possession statute was unconstitutional, and instead of fixing that law and building in a knowledge element to the crime, essentially hard drugs have been, for all intents and purposes, legalized in the state of Washington. There's a warning ticket process and referrals, but those cases are generally not being prosecuted. And so the impact is it's leading to more property crime. Drug use is creating a mental health crisis that I think we can all see in the news and we can see in our community. And unfortunately, we can see that that's also leading to violent crime. A lot of these people who are experiencing mental health issues are the ones that are committing these mass acts of violence. And so one of the greatest needs right now is for the legislature to fix the possession statute. I know that would do a lot to support law enforcement and a lot for our community to ensure public safety.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eisinger. Mr. Luxon, same question to you. Any laws that are an impediment to your ability to do your job?
Yeah, absolutely. The one that off the top of my head would be the vehicle pursuit law. It's had a significant impact on our community. Vehicle thefts are up over 400% in the Tri-City area, and that's a direct result of this law. So while it's well intended, unfortunately our legislators don't always check with our law enforcement officers and our prosecutors before that they pass some of this legislation. So the intent of the law is so that our law enforcement officers are not going 120 miles an hour through neighborhoods creating safety issues. No one was doing that before. We had policies and procedures in place that prohibited us from doing that. But what it has done is the criminals in our community have figured out that, hey, I can steal a car and no one can pull me over. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And it not only is it demoralizing for our law enforcement officers to see a known criminal drive away in a vehicle and not be able to legally pull them over, it's made it much more difficult to prosecute these cases. They're taking these vehicles, they're stripping them down and burning them, leaving them in different locations, and it's a community safety issue. And I'm on the Washington Prosecutor Association board that fights back against this legislation, and I'm happy to say that we've got some of the law enforcement legislation rolled back that was reckless over the last session, but we have a long ways to go, and that's one law in particular that I think we need to fix.
Thank you, Mr. Luxon. And I know that the next question we have sort of flips that coin a little bit, maybe gives us a chance to expand on some of these ideas, but what's an example of a piece of legislation that could support prosecuting attorneys? Or maybe put in another way, if you could ask the governor or the legislature something this next session that would make your job more effective?
I think going back to the Blake decision, which Mr. Eisinger mentioned, we need to have enforcement of possession laws for illegal substances. It has trickled down into our property crimes. Our property crimes are up significantly. And if we're not able to get these people help, if we're not able to put them in programs like drug court and mental health court and veterans court early on, they just commit more and more and more crimes. And so what it's doing is it's affecting all of us. I can't tell you how many people I hear have had their catalytic converters cut out. They've had their properties broken into. Because these people are seeking money to fuel their habits. And so we need to come up with a fix, a comprehensive fix to the Blake decision, which is effectively legalized drugs. And so when we are even behind Oregon in this circumstance, essentially, they've mandated treatment for individuals that are on these drugs. We haven't even done that. And what I've heard out of the legislative session this year, I'm not overly optimistic. I think it could actually get worse, but that doesn't mean we don't keep fighting. And I think that we have a chance here to keep our community safe with extra law enforcement officers and extra prosecutors, and we have the resources to get that done. So I'm optimistic locally, but on a state level, we need to keep fighting.
And I'll turn that question to you, Mr. Eisinger. What would you fight for?
Well, I think there's a real concern about really a loss of faith in the criminal justice system in general. So what I really want to see happen in Olympia is I really want to see a return to a belief in the importance that there are situations where certain actions require a response publicly. Actions have consequences, and the law should reflect that. So in other words, if somebody steals a vehicle, if somebody cuts out a catalytic converter, the law should reflect that this is a person that understands that they are going to go to jail because they've broken the law. And so I think that a lot of what we've seen legislatively has happened because there is kind of this eroding sense that the criminal justice system doesn't really work. There's concerns over whether people should be jailed or should be incarcerated. And I think there's a balance here because on the one hand, what we need to have happen is if somebody is on drugs, they're living on the street, they continually commit crimes, it's really the opportunity for them to be caught and sitting in jail to actually realize they need some help. At the same time, if they're in a situation where they realize they really need some help, we want them to have that opportunity to get help and have resources to get it, such as drug treatment or mental health treatment.
Mr. Eisinger, thank you very much. All right, moving on to question number 3 here. Looking at gang issues as they apply to this job, and how effective do you think prosecution of individual gang members in helping reduce either recidivism or just overall violence? And are there additional strategies to help deter the youth from joining gangs or embarking on a life of crime? Mr. Eisinger.
I think if you don't set a standard and enforce a standard, you're communicating to gangs that they can get away with whatever they want. And so I think as the county prosecutor, I intend to enforce the law strictly. If there's going to be gang violence in our community, if there's going to be crimes committed by gang members, they need to know there's going to be consequences. Once that word gets spread out among the gang community, I think they're going to be less likely and less desirous of living in Benton County. So I think a very severe and strict response is needed to protect us against gang violence. It's something that is a huge concern really around the country in other parts of our state, and it requires a swift response. I think it's very important to have programs in place where if people want help, they're able to get the help that they need. But again, that comes in the context, or should come in the context of a system that is unafraid to actually put somebody in jail or send someone to prison if they've committed a serious crime to protect the public.
All right, Mr. Eisinger, thank you very much. We hear the word system a lot here, so I'll just restate. It's kind of a two-part question for you, Mr. Luxon, but how effective do you think the prosecution of gangs here in Benton County is, and what other strategies could the prosecutor's office use?
Yeah, I think we're very strong on our prosecution of gang members right now. We use gang enhancements as well as firearm enhancements when appropriate. The first thing I think of when you say gangs is the issue with juveniles, and what the gangs are doing now is they're using, again, our system against us. The fact is that juveniles are not incarcerated like they were before, and the laws are much more restrictive as what we can do with them. And I was at a forum a few weeks ago where one of the Yakima police chiefs stated that the gangs are now recruiting those under 18 to commit murders, and they know that they cannot be incarcerated for a significant period of time under our current justice system. And so my biggest concern systemically is making sure that we don't create a system where, that our youth are being trafficked. And it was interesting because the forum said that females are being trafficked for sex and males are being trafficked for murder. And it's 100% true. And it's not something I'd ever really thought of before. But our youth gang violence is increasing, and we need to fight back with the legislature to address that issue. If elected, that's something that I would work with the legislature on overturning.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Luxon, and we'll start with you on this next one as well. And this is sort of a resume one, kind of the what makes you best for the job question. But you're both attorneys, so let's ask it in this way. In your opinion, what in your background best prepares you for this office as compared to your opponent? Mr. Luxon, you start first.
Yeah, I think ultimately this is a leadership position. I have served our community, like I said earlier, as a Richland City Councilman and as the mayor of Richland, and as particularly mayor during COVID. That provided a tremendous amount of leadership experience. My philosophy was if the right is upset and the left is upset, you're probably doing something right, and I think I achieved that given my email communications over that 2-year period. I try to take a very common sense approach to leadership. I work on building relationships. I'm very proud that in my first term as city council, I was appointed mayor. I think I'm the only person in the city of Richland's history to have done that. And what it really shows is my ability to build relationships early on with people. And that's reflected also in my endorsements. I'm endorsed by all the people that the prosecutor work with. Like I said earlier, the Benton County Sheriff, the Benton County Coroner, the Franklin County Sheriff, all the deputy prosecutors in our office, I have their support. So for me, this is a position where you're building a public safety coalition. And our community has had a lot of turnover recently. We've had new police chiefs. We're going to have a new prosecutor. And we need leadership. And I think right now what I bring to the table is someone that has those relationships built. I have defended law enforcement officers as the sheriff's office attorney for over a decade. I've defended them in federal court and state court. I know exactly what the prosecutor does because I've worked under Andy Miller for 11 years. And I think that makes me best situated to be the next prosecutor.
Mr. Luxon, thank you very much. Mr. Eisinger, same question to you. What makes you a better candidate than your opponent? I know that sounds more pointed that way, doesn't it?
So I was a prosecutor for 7 years, and then I went into private practice and have been in private practice for 12 years. And so I have a breadth of experience, and a lot of my experience is actually handling cases in court. I've had well over 1,000 criminal cases that I've handled in district and superior court. I've handled a wide variety of civil cases in both state and federal court. And I think that experience is very important because at this point in time, criminal law issues are really at the forefront of what we need our new elected prosecutor to deal with. In previous times, it may have been adequate to have more of a civil background when things are more stable societally, but right now we've had so much turmoil when it comes to new legislation, rising crime, and all these public health crises. And I think it's very important that we have someone with experience actually handling criminal cases. You know, 80% of the deputy prosecutors who work in the prosecutor's office actually handle criminal cases. And so having somebody who has that experience leading those group of people is important. I would also say that I have a small business background. So for the last 11 years, I've been a partner in a small law firm in Richland, Walker High. It's an excellent law firm. And I think there's a real need for a fresh perspective in the prosecutor's office. There's been an elected prosecutor for 36 years in the same office. And so bringing a new perspective and having a completely fresh outlook on what needs to happen for public safety, I think is important.
Mr. Eisinger, thank you very much. All right, next question, question number 5 here. Would you support any special strategies such as drug court to help mitigate crime, and why or why not, Mr. Eisinger?
Absolutely. So I think that when someone is arrested and they're put in jail, I think they should be presented essentially with 2 options, right? If you're going to proceed down this path and continue this life of crime, you're looking at jail time and you're looking at prison time. But ultimately, you know, we want these people who are dealing with issues to get help. And that's the whole point of drug court, and that's the whole point of mental health court. And so helping people get out of the system is actually a very important part of what the criminal justice system should be doing. And that only happens if, again, we maintain a belief that the criminal justice system actually works, that we're willing to set a boundary, community boundaries, that we're willing to enforce those boundaries, and when necessary, that we're willing to put people in jail or in prison, but presenting someone with an option that, hey, you don't have to live this way, and for certain types of offenses, there's another avenue where you can beat this problem, you can get off of the drugs, and you can be reintegrated back into society.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eisinger. Mr. Luxon, same question to you. Do you support drug court, and why or why not?
Absolutely. I think we need to hold violent offenders accountable, and those people are not appropriate for these therapeutic courts like drug court, mental health court, and veterans court. But for people that commit lower level crimes, such as property crimes, I do think that they're appropriate. I went to drug court graduation actually yesterday, and there have been over 300 graduates in drug court. And to hear this individual speak about how lost he was, that he had no more will to live before he got into drug court, and how it changed his life, honestly, I think everyone should go to one of those because it is truly inspirational and to hear what that program can do for people. And not only is it good for the community, it reduces recidivism rates, it's good for the individual, for their family, and I'm a big proponent for expanding that program. Right now, the public safety sales tax helps supports that program, as well as mental health court and veterans court. We just expanded our drug court program into district court. But really altogether, these programs are what get people out of the system, right? Because 80% of our resources are spent on 20% of the people. These are the people that over and over and over again commit the same sorts of crimes. And if we can get them help, what they need, and most of them are driven by mental health and drug abuse, it's really can change these people's lives, and I'm a huge proponent for them.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Luxon. All right, our last question here, it has a bunch of verbiage in here about visions and responsibilities and duties. I'm going to ask it really simply. If you had to tell somebody who didn't know, what's your job as a prosecutor?
Yeah, ultimately you're a leader. The prosecutor leads a team of almost 60 individuals. We have everything. A lot of people don't know what the prosecutor does. We do everything from criminal prosecution through a felony division, juvenile division, a district court division. We do mental health commitments, so someone that's committed against their will, that's having mental health issues. We have a child support division, and we have a civil division that advises all the different elected officials. So we sue on behalf of the county, and then also defend the county if it's sued. So the prosecutor has a broad responsibility in our office, and what the position ultimately is about getting people in the right places to be successful. I've watched Andy the last 11 years, and I've seen our office grow. And right now, what I think we need is someone that can bring the community together. We need someone that understands the issues like the public safety sales tax that's going out for ballot next year. We need someone that understands the importance of making sure that we get gang members off the streets, and that we are making sure that our jail has sufficient corrections officers to make sure that we're that we can actually put criminals in jail. There was a period of time in our community for about a year that there were booking restrictions, and we didn't actually put anyone that had a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor, with a few narrow exceptions, in jail. I'm proud to have helped work to eliminate that restriction. So this is something that I've been doing the last several years, is taking on the responsibilities of what the prosecutor does, and I think my municipal law experience in the office and as mayor of Richland and on city council will serve me well if I'm elected.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Luxon. And Mr. Eisinger, same question to you. I know it's sort of philosophical, but also, what is the job to you,
so
prosecutor?
The elected prosecutor is essentially the chief law enforcement officer in the county, and the reason I say that is because the elected prosecutor runs a team of 30 deputy prosecutors, and really the prosecutor sets the tone for all of law enforcement in the entire county. So all of the police chiefs, the local police forces, the sheriff, right? They're all essentially making arrests, they're conducting investigations, reports are turned in, but the prosecutor is the one that's handling the cases, and they're actually making decisions about what happens with the case as it goes through the court process. As we've seen in other cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, a prosecutor's unwillingness to do their job and actually deal with crime, specifically property crime, signals to the police, hey, I probably shouldn't make an arrest because the case isn't going to go anywhere. And so I think the most important thing when it comes to having vision as a prosecutor and communicating that vision to your staff and the community is a real deep down willingness to fight crime and say, you know what, all the stuff that we see happening in Seattle and Portland and these other places where there's really a reluctance to fight crime and again, a loss of the sense that the criminal justice system works. We've got to push back against that and actually fight crime and really take this job seriously and make sure that we protect our community. So I would say that's the number one and most important thing that the prosecutor does, is they set the tone for law enforcement in the community.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eisinger. And now, before we go, let's do some closing statements. We do have a little bit of time, so I want to give you a chance on, I guess, topic of your choosing, or one more chance to sell yourself to the voters out there. Mr. Eisinger, you go first.
Thanks a lot. So we are in really a challenging time as a community. We've seen, as I said, the legalization of drugs. We've seen rising crime, rising property crime, rising violent crime. And as I canvass the community and I talk to people who live here, it's really impacted their quality of life. I can tell in my conversations with people who live right here in Benton County that they feel less safe in their own homes and on their own streets than ever before. And that really bothers me. As I said before, I'm a father to 5 children. Before I consider myself to be an attorney or even a candidate for this position, I consider myself to be a husband and a father and just a concerned citizen of the community. And I think this is a time not for sitting back and staying comfortable, or staying, frankly, even in private practice and being in a more comfortable position. I think this is a time to step up and really get serious about combating a problem that everybody in this community needs to be dealt with. And that is that we need to fight back against this wave of oncoming crime before we lose our community. I think at some point, whether it's months from now or years from now, it may effectively be too late to push that back. I think that now is the time we have a really great opportunity to make sure that that stops. And I think along with the challenge, we get a great opportunity for this to be really, frankly, an amazing place within the state of Washington where people will want to move to, businesses will want to come here. I want to create that kind of environment, prosecute the law, and protect the people of the community.
All right, Mr. Eisinger, thank you so much. And Mr. Luxon, your closing statement, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I was born and raised in the Tri-Cities. I love this community. I chose to make this my home. And while I think we're in very, very challenging times, to be honest with you, I've never been more optimistic for our community. We are fighting back against some of the legislation that I think is making our community less safe. We are adding additional prosecutors to our office. We're adding additional law enforcement officers. We're adding additional judicial officers. And I really think that we are on the upswing as far as community safety. We are facing, honestly, an issue with, we're a growing community. When I grew up in the Tri-Cities, you could ride your bike down to the local 7-Eleven. And a lot of people don't feel like you can do that anymore. I want to make sure that we maintain a community where we can do that. And I don't think that we just rest on our laurels and that we accept the fact that crime is rising, that issues like homelessness are rising, that drug use is rising. We have the means and we have the community support to make sure that we don't turn into Seattle, cities like Seattle or Portland. And I really think with the proper leadership, especially with the new generation of leadership, like I stated earlier, we have new police chiefs, we're going to have a new prosecutor. I'm very, very optimistic for our future, and I hope that I'm a part of it and I can get your support.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciate you coming to our studio here at the WSU Tri-Cities campus. Nice to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
And thanks to all of our candidates here. We covered 10 races and the 20 people running for them during our election coverage this week. For a couple of years, we did these programs remotely. Nice to have our candidates in the same room talking about some issues that matter to you, the voters. Now, a quick reminder that 2022 general election is on Tuesday, November 8th. The 18-day voting period for mail-in ballots begins Friday, October 21st. And if you do still need to register, you can do that online up until Halloween night, October 31st. But you can register in person all the way up to Election Day. And that wraps up our week of Vote 2022 election coverage here at Northwest Public Broadcasting. We covered races in the 8th and the 16th legislative districts, a Pasco school board race, a contested district judge race on the ballot as well. If you missed any of those, we do have those full programs online at nwpb.org/vote2022. And not just these programs, but coverage from NWPB on some of the stories behind the questions that we have asked of our candidates here. We thank the candidates, but we want to sign off with one more nod to those who've tuned in all week for us. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for wanting to find out more about these issues, and have a great night.